Returnal is a very, very hostile game. You play as Astra scout Selene, stranded on an alien planet that is constantly shifting and changing its geography. Isolated and alone, pretty much the only life forms Selene meets are all trying to kill her, and they often succeed. But for reasons unknown, Selene keeps coming back to life at the site of her ship's crash, and there's seemingly no way to break the loop until she can reach the mysterious White Shadow broadcast elsewhere on the planet. All in one go, no deaths along the way. That means you, the player, have quite the challenge ahead. This alien planet, Atropos, is out to kill Selene in any way it possibly can, and death can come at any time, from any angle. In all honesty, this game takes a little bit of getting used to when you first begin. So seeing as we've died, and then died again, and come out the other side repeatedly too, here are our best tips for getting your head around the many intriguing mechanics and systems at play here. And don't worry, no spoilers or gameplay beyond the first 2 biomes. First things first, Returnal is a fast-paced game. You're encouraged to always keep moving, and boy can Selene move. Her default pace is speedy enough, but when you add sprinting and dashing to that, you can cover immense distances quickly. That's great because you've got far to go and your enemies can move fast too, but it can also mean plenty of missteps in the first world in particular, where one wrong move can see you plummet into an abyss. That's not always the end of the world. You won't die from falling off a cliff unless your health is already low. You'll just take a chunk of damage instead and respawn nearby. But it can be hard to keep track of where you are during a shootout, and that's where dash becomes instrumental in survival. When you dash by pressing circle, you'll briefly become invulnerable to incoming damage and can pass through projectiles unscathed. So it really pays to get your dash timing absolutely perfect as early in the game as possible. And you can also use dash alongside a well-placed jump to get yourself out of trouble if you do end up putting a foot wrong. That's why it can also pay to get familiar with your minimap, but more on that later. First, combat. Because Returnal is so fast-paced, its combat can go from 0 to 100 incredibly quickly, meaning you can be on what you think is a great run, only for it to fall apart moments later when you walk into a room and get hit with some aggressive spawns and unlucky timing. You'll need to have all the important tools at your disposal before you get serious about combat though, and that includes access to your main weapon, your alt fire, and your melee weapon, the Atropian Blade. These will all be collected as part of the main quest in the first biome, so don't stress about finding them, but do bear it in mind before you really set out to explore. To begin with, every time you restart a loop, you'll be equipped with your modified sidearm. To aim, you'll only have to pull down L2 about halfway, and then it's R2 to shoot. Alternatively, and we do recommend this when things get a bit frenetic, you can shoot from the hip by just using R2. Soon enough, you'll unlock your alt fire, which you can queue up by fully pulling down on L2 to aim. As you might imagine, this contextual use of L2 aiming takes a little bit of getting used to, but it is worth sticking with and practicing because alt fire is a game changer. A more powerful attack than your main weapon mode, though it has a cooldown, which you can keep track of via the icon to the right of your weapon proficiency gauge on the bottom left corner of the screen, your alt fire's specific nature will be randomized every time you restart a loop. Sometimes it unleashes a beam of incredibly powerful energy, other times it's a localized blast of electricity, and still other times it's a swarm of smaller projectiles that will seek out and follow your target if they move. It is very much worth remembering the alt fire modes that work for you, because seeking out your perfect weapon with its perfect alt fire mode attached makes a run much easier. Hollow Seeker with Void Beam was a favourite combination of ours. Keep in mind that no weapon type is necessarily better than the rest though, and guns are far, far more than their name and proficiency rating alone, because as you progress through Atropos, in addition to your alt fire, guns can also come with multiple other traits, which you can compare as you go to pick a new one up. Hardened increases your protection, for example. Retarget means the projectiles seek out additional hostiles upon hitting the initial foe you're aiming at. There are loads to discover, and these traits really can make all the difference when it comes to chipping away damage to bosses and to mobs in the frenzied heat of battle. Be aware that some weapons will only unlock traits after you've used them for some time too. Once you've gotten the basics of movement and combat down, you'll want to explore a little bit, and we do seriously recommend doing this in the first world in particular. Have a look at your map display and get familiar with all the different icons. You'll probably need to use maps in this game more than you have in many others recently, as it's just really important to get your bearings. Rooms marked with a green door will further the main quest, and rooms with a blue door will lead to optional extras. Every so often a blue door will lead to an extremely tough fight, but more often than not in the first world, it will lead to things that'll help you, like reclaimers that restore and increase your max health, reconstructors that will respawn you to their location after death for one use only, fabricators used to construct augmentations or items, consumables, and more. It's also where you'll most likely find the key needed to unlock the mysterious house Selene may come across in the first biome, and we recommend doing this as soon as you can, as exploring the house will unlock non-permanent items for Selene to use, including the extremely useful astronaut figure that'll bring you back to life in the spot where you died. Be aware, it's just a one-use item though. There are 6 house sequences in all, and it seems like you can only revisit the house after you unlock your next biome. There are lots of locations and areas you'll pass by when you first start the game that you'll only be able to reach later on once other gadgets are unlocked, so bear that in mind. Certain orange vine barricades can only be bypassed once you get the Atropian blade, for example, and any platforms where you can see an orange light will only be accessible once you beat the boss at the end of World 2. A little tip for these platforms in World 1 though, you'll often see them alongside some long vines/tentacles, which will grab at Selene if she gets too close. However, as scary as they are and as disgusted as Selene is when she gets grabbed, they won't actually hurt you right off the bat. So, you can use their height to pull you up to a higher platform, use dash to escape, and then grab the goods. Thanks, tentacle friends! While your minimap is an invaluable tool in Returnal, it doesn't always show you everything an area has to offer. If you find a chest behind a stone lattice, look around for a button nearby to shoot and open it up. It's a subtle detail, but the little robot on your shoulder will make a noise when you're near a secret. Some areas may have destructible walls, and sometimes you'll find secret chambers where you'll drop down and find treasures, challenges, or something a lot worse. When you're first starting out in World 1 though, these trapdoors are almost always worth trying, as they can hide some great consumables and weapons. Also in World 1, statues with glowing eyes can be destroyed to harvest obolite inside, while in World 2, rocks can be mined for the same. In World 1, these purple plants can be destroyed too, and sometimes you can find malignant resin or even parasites hiding inside. Yay? Well, actually, yes. On that note, Returnal is a game all about weighing up risk versus reward, and parasites are just one of the ways in which you do this, alongside malignancies, malfunctions, augmentations, and more. We told you this game was hostile, and most of the time, getting a helping hand comes at a price. Parasites will grant you some amazing boons, like regenerating health, greater protection, more loot, better weapon damage, but they will make things difficult for you elsewhere in return. They'll decrease the drop rate of items, they'll take a chunk of weapon proficiency from you, or they'll make it so that obolite is harder to collect. It's all about finding the parasite that works best for your particular playstyle, but we would recommend picking up a sedating parasite if you can. These will slowly regenerate your health back to a point if it gets low, and this really is worth whatever negative attribute it's paired with, as having that guaranteed returning health threshold can see you through some seriously dangerous times. This risk-reward ethos is also present in malignant items. Malignant chests and keys can be picked up or opened, but they are likely to bestow a suit malfunction upon you in return. Malfunctions are negative effects that can only be removed by performing an indicated task, like killing a certain number of hostiles or fabricating an item. Some are easier to remove than others, but beware if they start to pile up. 3 malfunctions trigger a critical event where a random item you're carrying is destroyed. It's quite easy to avoid most malignancies if you want to, by either simply avoiding picking up malignant items, or by cleansing those items with ether, a consumable item that perpetuates over death, though you can only carry up to 30 at a time. Ether has a multitude of other great uses though, so we wouldn't recommend using it all on cleansing chests and keys. Once you start getting the basics of combat down, you might start wondering about some of the other systems at play. Proficiency, that's the bar underneath your health, measures your combat ability per cycle, and killing enemies as well as picking up certain items increases your proficiency and proficiency rate. Proficiency level determines the minimum level of weapons you can find in the world, and how high the stats are on the weapons you find. Weapons in this game thankfully don't need ammo, but when used a lot, can overheat and need a moment to recharge. You can speed this process up by overload. When a gun is recharging, you'll see a bar pop up where your reticule was. When that bar fills to the center, pull the trigger and your weapon overloads, becoming instantly reloaded. You'll notice a bit later on in the game that some items and augmentations will give you additional buffs for overloading. So it's worth getting into the habit of doing this, even when things get hectic. Finally, you should keep an eye on your adrenaline too. Selene's adrenaline increases with every 3 enemies you kill. There are 5 levels, and each one provides a handy buff, all of which stack. Once you're hit though, it resets all over again, though you can find items that will instantly spike your adrenaline to level 5 on use. To keep your adrenaline at max level for as long as possible, it just pays to keep moving and to keep using dash. So these are some general tips to get you started, but really our main one is, don't get discouraged if you die. We find there can be a bit of a plateau in terms of progress when you're trying to beat the second world's boss, but just keep practicing with new weapon types, keep exploring, and you will break through eventually. And once you progress through to new biomes, do still take some time to explore previous ones with any new gadgets you get. You'll be treated to new story beats, new tools, and even some new weapons. This is a difficult game for sure, but if that's your type of thing, we guarantee you won't be able to stop thinking about Returnal even when it's making you rather frustrated. We speak from experience. Oh, and one last tip, Void Beam Altfire seems like a pretty great one to have against most bosses, and strafing is almost always your friend. Do you have any Returnal tips of your own? Be sure to leave them in the comments below to share them with anyone else that might be struggling. Let us know what you think of the game, and until next time, thanks for watching. Bye!